Previously on X-Men.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Podtendo podcast, X-Men 97 reviews. I don't know what we're calling these. They were kind of instant reactions. We're just carrying on. So I am your co-host, Mick, and I'm joined every episode by lovely and talented co-host,
Tyson.
Cool. And we're two adult men that talk about our childhood a lot. I think that's what I've decided what we're doing. X-Men, the cartoon, back in the 90s was a big part of our lives growing up. Oh man, I remember in grade 3, I just brought all my X-Men toys for show and tell one day, and I just played with them in front of class for like probably 10 minutes. It was awesome. Like I just had like 50 guys, and I just set them all up, and I was like, this is Bishop. And I told everyone about them, and the teacher, not impressed. So, I'm excited that now, as an older person, just don't do the math, I can still talk about X-Men. That's pretty exciting. Still digging the show 3 weeks in, yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely digging it. It's definitely a different one today. It's a a split episode of 2 stories.
Yeah, kind of more anthology kind of stories, more cut up, sort of similar to older comics, right? Lots of comics back in the day would have multiple parts. Maybe they'd end one story in the middle of a comic and kind of pick up with a different story in the middle and get like 2 parts. So it's kind of true to old comic books and how they were kind of made and presented, right? So it's kind of neat there. And again, of course, we are talking about X-Men 97, Episode 4, Motendo / Lifedeath, Part 1. It was released April 3rd, 2024. We're coming to you the day afterwards. We took a night to sleep on it, watch it twice, digest. Definitely a better way of doing it. Because like you pick up on little things, you get to think about stuff versus the first couple shows we were watching them and then like trying to pump out a show as quick as possible. And there was just things, like we asked questions. And there was parts I'm like, yeah, for some reason, Sabretooth just shows up with a 6-pack, and Wolverine's like, okay. And you're like, no, it's Morph. Going back and watching it again, and I'm like, sometimes I just wasn't watching the screen, obviously. So it's nice to watch it a couple times before we talk about it.
Definitely. And I took notes again. This is a show that, like, even my second watch through, sometimes I'm just like put my notes down and take notes afterwards, or pause it and then take my notes. Because like there's a lot of times where I'm just quickly pausing because there's so many like little references. So I tried to not jot them down as best as I could.
Okay.
So you're kind of gonna get a little Easter eggy list of things that I could find in this.
There you go, Tyson's Easter egg list. We're going to do a recap, a review of the 2 episodes, so I guess it'll be kind of, let's be a little, I think it'll work, and then we'll do, just talk about the show, I guess, in general, and then we have some 5-star rankings, or 5, is that what we're calling them, 5-star rankings, and I don't know why I said I was going to go back and listen to all the X-Men shows. I started, and I got to X-Men Last Stand, and I was like, this has nothing to do with the cartoon whatsoever, like, this could not be further from the truth. So a couple weeks ago, and I said I should go back and listen to all those old X-Men shows. There's like no crossover outside of the name from our
and the characters. That's different stories.
Yeah,
it's their own thing. So
again, now that I've like had time to digest and I'm coming in here with a game plan, and I kind of have like a better idea of what's going on. Hopefully, we say less silly things and have to have less conversations where we say something and I'm like, that's so wrong. Correct yourself, dummy.
Correct ourselves. There's always a correction corner somewhere.
All right, so we are getting a little bit of response, so thank you for that. So if you guys are listening to on YouTube, that's definitely where we're garnering a lot of takes. Awesome, great, thanks you guys for following along. Leave comments if you want to have conversations with us. Not so much even likes and subscribes. I don't care about that stuff. More of if we wanted to build a community, these are good opportunities, right? So leave comments on our videos, how we can improve, things you like, just things you want to talk about, and let's talk. Also, podtendo@gmail.com probably gets you there. So let's get into today's episode, though, because it's supposed to be short. Now we're just talking about nothing for 5 minutes. Cool, awesome. This episode starts off on the morning of her 18th birthday. Jubilee and Roberto are transported into a video game by Mojo. Oh boy. So we get opening scene of X-Men having breakfast, having coffees, kind of discussing what they're doing. Magneto's being a bit more of a hard ass, telling them, no, we have to train. There's threats ahead. You have to be ready. And we get a little peek into teenage, coming of age Jubilee. What she wants to do for her birthday is go to the arcades. So how did you like the beginning of this episode?
Good. Quick little note on the opening because they're keep watching the openings, kids. Don't skip it.
They change.
They change.
So I didn't know that in the first two shows because again we did it so quick. I think I actually skipped the opening and watched it on a rewatch, and I was like, oh, it's different.
Yes. And there's some cool things here. We got Mojo, Jubilee, and Longshot. We get a Phoenix sighting. We get a Lilandra and Charles. We get Phoenix and Scott kind of have a little fight. I don't know. And then there's like a long-haired Bishop moment where he's flying back in time, and it's like interesting.
I don't know what they're alluding to with that. As long as they're just kind of alluding to maybe episodes that we should watch, right? Because they kind of
I have a theory about this.
They dive into like Xavier and the Hellfire Club, right? They show that with kind of the Phoenix saga, and I'm like, I get it, but I don't know. Like, is that something we should...
Here's my question. Are we going to do time travel back to the original series? Or are we going to maybe retell some of these old stories? Because there's also, like... So there's a long-haired Bishop.
I hope
there's,
not.
like, Havoc, Polaris, Wolverine, Bobby, and Forge in a little cut back. Well, there's, like, Emma, Frost, Sebastian Shaw, and Charles have a little moment. But it's like...
I would look into it more as just this is how the characters were like introduced in the first series. So here's Forge when they met X-Factor. That's that, right? Here's the Hellfire Club. What does that mean? Maybe Emma Frost, right? Maybe makes an appearance or something. Like I think that's what they're alluding to with a lot of these kind of credit. I don't think it's anything more than just like, maybe you guys should notice that Emma Frost
very
is
interesting
a character.
That they are making like a lot of references to the old TV show as well. Mm-hmm. Like, and I actually have a little point about when we get to it in one of the levels. Should we just get into the levels because the next part of the summary kind of just jumps to the end?
Sure. Did you want to talk about the beginning, or because you kind of just started talking about the intro, right? So any of the beginning of the episode.
Yeah. So opening, and then there's that like breakfast scene. With
sure. So you're just gonna skip ahead one of the most blatant slap of the face you've ever received personally as a person. You're just completely fine with this episode, what Disney, what Fox, what they've done to you personally.
The Motendo joke.
Excuse me? That's our thing. That's what we do. We put something in front of Tendo, Podtendo, Tendo. In fact, we actually had a spin-off show for one or two shows. I don't really remember because sometimes we do stuff and there's no continuity. But that's our thing. This makes me so mad. I feel like I'm going to explode.
Okay, Millhouse.
Awkward step back. It's all... But I thought I was the only one. All right. Yeah, so Motendo.
I know all too well. Yeah, I was thinking about this, the naming convention. So it's Motendo, and I'm like... Had we done that with our podcast, it would be Podtendo.
Oh, well, because, it was like Mojo. And then it's the next thing. But we took the first. So Mojo, so one syllable, Mo. So we took pod of a podcast. So it would still work. We did the exact same thing.
It's I just was like, drop the first two letters. Like, if we just only took the first two letters, it'd just be Podtendo. And I just thought that was funny.
It's not letters, it's syllables. So
I know, but I just thought it was
Jubilee does find what looks like a Sega Genesis-ish podcast or a console. There's an X-Men cartridge.
The OG one.
But it wasn't on the Genesis because it shows Apocalypse face that they're jumping from. And that's not what the box art looks like. So I don't know if that was actually like the X-Men arcade or something like that.
Could be. Or I also wonder if it's like maybe the Game Gear cover because it did look super familiar.
I know. I was gonna look this up beforehand, and then
now you mention it, I thought it was like, it's just the Sega Genesis cover.
I heard that, right. And I've actually heard that on a couple shows that I went and listened. And I was like, that's actually wrong because it shows Apocalypse. And there's definitely a game that has them kind of like running from Apocalypse or like jumping, and he's behind. Not entirely sure with that one. So that might be, we have to come back next week on that one. So we just did a touch of that. I was like, son of a gun, they're onto us. Damn. All right. So with the help of the digital, or I guess those are transported into the video game. So really with the help of their digital copy of Jubilee and what the heck? Man, this summary on is absolutely terrible.
Maybe it just skips. It just goes straight to the end.
Okay. Maybe in the future I won't be lazy and I'll write down a better note summary. Cool. This was just Easy, simple, the first couple shows.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So they're chilling in the room. All of a sudden,
They're sucked in the video game. Some
Yep.
Sentinels attack. They're kind of in downtown, I guess, New York or wherever, the kind of the big city, probably New York City.
And the
Sun
something against.
Son or Roberto is refusing to use his mutant powers. Jubilee, they find it was a phone call, and they get transported back to Genosha. An earlier episode, right? This part
Yes.
where older Jubilee shows up, saves them, or I guess the digital version of Jubilee shows up, saves them. They realize they're in a video game, and this is where Mojo first shows up and basically outlines that the ratings are down. He's suffering. His world's no good. They need the X-Men. They need Jubilee, and hopefully she can star in this new video game and help increase the ratings in his universe.
Yeah. Yeah. So they go to Genosha and they see Blob, Domino, and Sunfire. Now, in that episode, do we not meet the wild man of Borneo?
Cable is there, yes. Yeah.
Yes. And then in the next scene, after like Mojo and Jubilee kind of have their like little quarrel, and they get sucked into the arcade. There's like a little arcade select screen, and of those characters, there's Cable.
Okay.
So I was like, what the heck is going on here? It's like,
I think they're trying to very subtly take you through the like episodes that are important from the original series, right? So yeah, going back and watching that Slave Island, you're like, oh, I kind of forget how that one works. I think it's meant to be kind of like, well, Cable's there, you know, and like it kind of supposed to be guiding your hand and kind of helping you out, right? I think so.
Yeah,
from this point, Jubilee's like, great, awesome, Mojo, you've never been a bad guy before. We're like best friends, basically. I'm definitely gonna play this video game and like not think it's suspicious. So Jubilee proceeds to play the X-Men arcade game, the 1992 X-Men. What was it called? It was called just X-Men arcade game. So levels are
arcade,
pretty similar. They start out in the city streets. They go to a Sentinel factory, which kind of makes me think they're just like the whole Cable thing in Wild Man of Borneo is just a coincidence, and they're actually just showing you the levels because she jumps back to the city, fights the Sentinels. She's in the jungle, I believe, fighting Sauron at one point, which is one of the jungle levels.
Yeah. Level 1. We're skipping little things. Wait, one quick. I'm gonna go back. So the arcade select screen, like character select. There's Jubilee, Colossus, Sunspot, Magica, Longshot. There's a blank spot, which is weird, and then Cable, who's kind of like oddly cut off. Then it goes to like the levels. Level 1, Sentinel attack, I think is what it's called. And then as they're playing, Mojo becomes fat and thick again because he was starving because no one was watching his content.
Yes.
Now the X-Men's back. He's getting more powerful. Then go level 2. Yeah, it's Sauron as the final boss, and still like Roberto's like running around with a stick, and Jubilee's actually just wrecking the house. So
yeah, she kind of dives into, okay, it's a video game, I'm gonna have fun with my powers, play in this world, and Roberto's like, I can't use my powers because my parents might see me. Okay, you're clearly in a video game, so why not use them here and experiment? I kind of hate Roberto more than anything. It's just so terrible.
Oh, we'll see that probably showing up in our rankings because there's not a lot of mutants in these episodes, so kind of gotta make it work.
To not make it is unfortunate. Stupid Roberto. From there, though, I think they jump into kind of like the final Asteroid M, Magneto's base, I think is what they call it. And sure enough, if you look up the X-Men arcade walkthrough, they start in the city. There's a Sentinel factory. They go to a jungle. And then, of course, the final level is Asteroid M and a battle with Magneto. During it, Roberto is hurt. Jubilee kind of learns the final boss pattern, is able to defeat him before being saved by some cyberpunk who takes Jubilee and Roberto to kind of some offshoot, what did she call it? Like a router or something? An offline router in Mojo Land? Revealing
somewhere like a different server. She's in paper, the like admin server or something. Yeah.
So it turns out to be a digitized version of Jubilee who has been kind of protecting her and helping her along the way. And she kind of...
Yes. With an interesting name. Abstica? I have no idea how to pronounce this.
Abstica. Yeah. I don't... Okay,
yeah,
cool.
No idea. But anyways, Roberto gives Jubilee the great nickname of Jubes.
Jubes. Okay.
And I was like, that's a terrible nickname.
Yeah.
And cool note, like the final boss battle against Magneto, he's totally using all like his moves from the original like Sega game, isn't he? Like he's got the
It's an X-Men arcade game.
Yeah. It's like beautiful. Love these things. But Rodrigo is essentially useless.
It's just the worst. For like an episode where like I'm like Jubilee's pretty badass, and I'm like, Roberto, you're terrible. Maybe that's why he's terrible, to make Jubilee better. I don't know. So he ends up defeating her. Future Jubilee, or we could call it Absica, shows off kind of the extent of what her powers with proper training. She can spin around the floor. She can kind of shoot firework discs, right? And Jubilee has that moment where she's like, oh, is that what I can become? Like, is that what I can train to become and like harness my powers? They have kind of a cool final boss come together moment where they shoot like a spirit bomb essentially into Mojo, destroy him, which releases him from their hold, sending him back to the room where Jubilee makes an advance on her new little bow. I mean, he's a billionaire, he has a jet, he's useless, but if you have a jet, you can be as useless as you want.
Yes. And I guess he's the only kind of person her age, so he just sucks. He's just the worst freaking character. He does nothing in this episode, and you're like, okay, cool. Like him and Jubilee in an episode, we get a time watch both of them shine. It's like, no, you get to see Jubilee shine.
Yeah,
it's like cool. I get that. That's kind of his point, is he's refusing to like give up or give into his powers, but he has like one moment of shooting fire, and then that's it.
Yeah,
that's all we get. So
that ends part 1. I didn't actually check the time code. I'm guessing about 15 minutes or so. They dedicated.
It's a bit longer actually.
Is it?
So this one's about I would say like 18 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Because the Life and Death part 1 is it's pretty quite short. So, but getting into Life and Death part 1, we see Forge and Storm having dinner.
So, yeah, is that where it starts? It does start with Storm is at Forge's house having dinner in her house. Nice overview shots. Meanwhile, Storm and Forge head to, and they're trying to resurrect her powers. So they have kind of a quick, what do you want to call that? Shit, what's that called? Exposition. They have an exposition dump here a little bit where they kind of talk about, so what did you do before? What is your powers? Oh, you can invent anything you can imagine? That's kind of neat, kind of cool. I wish I could fly.
You can even cook really good.
Yeah.
Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, I could definitely make this. And then kind of Storm kind of regrets that she can't feel, she's missing her powers. She misses the ability to fly, kind of feel the elements. She's just feeling a little bit lost without it, right? So they kind of have that little bit of reconciliation. Did you, and then they go horseback riding. Did you notice it the first time?
I didn't. Second time I did, though.
So I did, because I was watching, and for some reason I picked up on this eagle. I thought it was like an eagle flying in the opening shot, and there's some solar panels on the house, and I was like, oh, cool. I've done that before. Kind of going through, and at one point Storm is discussing something. It's just a normal conversation. She pulls her head back, and as she does, the owl's now perched inside the house in one of the rafters. And I'm watching, and I'm like, oh my God, we're in a horror movie. I was like, oh. So first time through last night when I was watching through it, I was on edge the rest of the episode. I was like, okay, this is something. I was like, that's weird. Definitely weird. Next scene, they're on horseback. Storm's flying. They get to a cliff, and they kind of wax poetically. And Storm looks up in the sky and says, look, I've noticed this owl a couple times flying around, and I'm like, oh, we are definitely in a horror movie. Like, they were in for some bad news.
Yes. And I don't know I didn't know really a ton about Forge.
Mm-hmm.
I knew kind of his powers and a couple of the stories he's been in, but I've never really like dug too deeply. But for this episode I did. So yeah, very weird story with this creepy owl and creepy winds, and yeah, very isolating and off.
It's cool. It was subtle. It was nice. It was rewarding to go back on the rewatch and like, oh yeah, pick up on those things. Actually, I missed it on my rewatch. I was like, where the hell is the owl in the house? And I had to skip back through, and I was like, oh, there it was. And I was like, good for me for noticing that, because that's like very, very subtle. Forge invents a machine to kind of undo the radiation process that the executioner's gun had had done on her to take away her powers. So he kind of was able to kind of replicate that. She steps into a machine, unable to use his powers. This is where the reveal comes that Forge Oh God, he loves Storm, and I'm like, I see. Okay, cool, great.
Yeah.
He also reveals that he kind of invented the mutant collars, so it was kind of his fault, which is why he felt like he needed to help her because he felt guilty. And you're like, that's awkward.
Yes, yes, and it's like, oh, you're kind of a dick. But couple Easter eggs in the background. There's a X-Force photo with the team. Then there's an odd photo, and this one caught my eye because I could not kind of figure out what the heck this was referencing. There's a picture of Forge the scientist and some random dude with his head cut off in the picture, like, or head covered.
Okay.
And that's apparently a character named Bastion.
Okay.
We're like, who the heck is that? And you're like, so it's apparently it was created when Master Mold was absorbed Nimrod.
Okay.
So, know nothing about this character, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this Bastion character will be a big part.
Okay.
Coming up.
Cool.
So
that's fun. Yeah, that's cool. Neat. From there, though, Storm learning the true nature of Forge's kind of alliance, his assistance with her, she takes off. She runs upstairs, grabs her things, jumps on a horseback, and as she proceeds to run away, she's picked up. No, she
just trips out. Like she's just riding, and then she sees some glowing eyes, and then like the horse trips and falls, and she like falls off a cliff
and falls through Forge's roof, landing in his floor. Where Forge comes upstairs saying, "Hey, I just followed you up the stairs. Are you okay?" Right, indicating something is a little off. We see a monstrous talon reach around the wall, and this big creature, apparently known as the Adversary, some type of ancient demon that has an owl body with kind of human talon leg hybrid things, bites Forge to remove him, wraps Storm up, and says, "I feed on misery, and I'm about to enjoy my meal." As the episode ends.
Yes. Very cool.
Yeah.
So lots of not really too much to unpack, but very like trippy because the roof kind of rebuilds itself. So we're like, we've definitely in another worldly kind of plane with this weird demon owl calling itself the Adversary, and yes, very, very weird. But I have a bunch of notes throughout this. Is like, so Forge's powers are kind of OP because essentially he can just create anything that his mind imagines.
Well, yeah, sure. Why not?
That's literally a stupid power.
But,
and then it's like,
but it's kind of just, he can invent things. He's an inventor. I think at some point he helps Ben Grimm or something like that, because Mr. Fantastic, the smartest man ever, couldn't build that invention. So it's just a storytelling technique ultimately at the end of the day, right?
Yes,
yeah,
literally that's his power, is whatever the bloody writers deem it to be. He's kind of a catch-all card for that, which is why he kind of comes up periodically in complicated X-Men stories. But he also kind of has like some shaman powers, which is also kind of wacky. But we'll learn more about that because I know a lot of the let's get into the actual review. So like, I know a lot of the criticism. Let's start with that maybe. A lot of the criticism about this episode and the previous episode is like, oh, it's pacing and it being broken up kind of is disjointed. But you make a good point that that's very comic-esque, and I can see where a lot of people would be miffed at this, because this last Forge and Storm story is super quick. Like I said, the other one ran long. The other one ran like 18 minutes or 17 minutes. So this wasn't much more than 12 or so.
Yeah. Well, I think they're just giving us bits and pieces rather than giving us one overarching narrative for whatever reason, right? However they've storyboarded it. I think it's going to be weird, right? I wouldn't be surprised if next week we see Nathan and Bishop, right? We get a 20-minute segment of what's Bishop up to in the future. And then we don't get full episodes dedicated to it. We just get we'll probably get little snippets here and there, right? For whatever reason, that's how they're doing it. And I don't know, it might just be help break up the narrative, kind of works better because Disney Plus does a lot of shorts, right? I don't know if they do a lot of full-length feature stuff, right? They do a lot of shorts, so it might just be easier to delegate some, teams that are better on working on short stories, right? 10-minute little segments. Give it to that squad. They're awesome at that. They can't do longer feature segments, but the short stuff, like, they're dedicated to that. It might be any number of those kind of background features, right?
Yes. But I kind of think that it's unfairly labeled. This episode's unfairly labeled as filler or whatever, because there's a lot to kind of digest.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you could say that the Jubilee Roberto story is kind of tacked on or whatever.
No, that's a very important story.
I think so too.
Because, okay, so like criticism, if that's where we're at, for myself, do I have a criticism?
Yeah.
I was probably just like Roberto. I don't know. They're introducing this new character, and he's just absolutely terrible. He's awful. I hope he has some type of redemption, but as of right now, I don't care about you. I hope nothing good comes from you. I hope your powers are terrible, and I don't know. Hopefully you don't get a sunburn. I'm done with this character. He's annoying. He's obnoxious.
Yes.
Not a fan.
Yeah, he's become quite problematic.
Yeah.
And he's like, I guess we're seeing when we were kids on Saturday morning cartoon show, there was always like the kid counterpart. So in Gummy Bears or whatever, there was the human kid.
You need the fish out of water. Yeah, you need someone to tie you to reality, to explain the rules of your magic, right? I don't know if we need that necessarily, though. I think we get it.
No,
but I also
agree.
get it.
I don't like them.
I get it, but I come in with a baggage. I have all my cards in my bag. I have all my DVDs in my bag. I have some toys, so I know what's going on. The guy that shows up with nothing, maybe he needs that, right? It's just, I don't know. He was kind of maybe kind of annoying in this one.
Yeah, and then just kind of defending this episode against some other criticism. It's I think that like people are saying it's short or whatever. It's like, well, there's literally another episode called Life and Death Part 2, and that's a whole episode. So I feel like this story was kind of not big enough for 2 episodes, but big enough but too big for 1 episode. So doing this like preview of what we're gonna get, and then having a whole story to kind of just like bask in it, I think it's gonna be really like rewarding. And it's easy to judge it now and just like, oh, the pacing's wrong and it's stupid filler episode. It's like, but I feel like this is setting us up for a really good payoff.
It's also the mid-series, like I said last episode, guys. Episodes 4 through 6 or whatever it is, that middle parts, we're gonna have some episodes you're like, it's a cartoon for children, and that's fine. They're going to tell us little side stories. It's going to mean nothing. We just move on with our lives, right? There's going to be no overarching narrative. The final 3 episodes will probably be really good. The first 3 were good. The last 3 will be good. The middle stuff, we're going to get stuff where you're like, well, I don't know if I like this. Well, it's also meant for children, adults, man, who's complaining about this. So just remember that.
And
how about an actual positive part
of
this review? So rather than just like, I don't care. Well, if there's critics, this episode was definitely weaker than the first 2, but I think there was some parts, and you gotta kind of take the good with the bad, right? So how about a favorite part of this episode? We'll do that, do a positive, and then we'll do our 5-star rankings and get out of here. So what is your favorite part of either of these episodes?
Jubilee gets an episode to be awesome.
Okay.
And I'm so stoked on that. Because, like, I mean, she's kind of underrated character, and I don't really rank her that high, but it was kind of cool to just, like, spend her birthday with her, and she's a fun character. She's capable of like managing stuff on her own. Yeah, sure, she just beat like a video game version of Magneto, but it's showing that like this character isn't just a pushover. She does have some chops, and I love them giving her an actual like episode to shine, even though it's like. But I think it's good. I think it's a solid amount.
And I think it's done well. And I think the subtext of the story is probably my favorite part, right? So that we're seeing this new leadership, this new management, as it were, this new teamwork from the X-Men, right? The training room, or the danger room training schedule has been mentioned multiple times, right? Magneto's a bit more of a hard ass than Xavier. And as we saw previously in comics, it's the Age of Apocalypse, a lot of the X-Men had greater powers, greater use of their powers, because Magneto was a better leader. He was a bit more of a general. He wanted soldiers, right? He didn't want just peacekeepers. And we're seeing that, this emphasis on training. Let's train, right? Oh, it's Jubilee's birthday. If she wants another birthday, she better come to the danger room and do what I'm saying, right? Like this threat is real. And we kind of get that payoff of the defiance of Jubilee, of the youth saying, oh, I don't really want to work. But she gets the payoff when she sees future digital self, use her powers, right? Be able to slide around the room, have discs, create energy projectiles, and actually be able to destroy things. So at the beginning, at her current level, she can blind a Sentinel, knock it off senses for 2 seconds. If you work hard and you follow the Magneto plan, your powers could become, all of a sudden you're destroying Sentinels by yourself, right? So it's kind of that nice subtext in the story of, are we going to see greater uses of these mutant powers, right? We're going to see new iterations. And why? Well, it's because they're training. They're going to be stronger. We're going to see new variations, right? So I kind of like that subtext of the story, and I think where we're going, which means we might be able to see bigger, grander stories. They might be able to have more adversaries, just bigger threats, right? Because once you get stronger, well, how do you keep the story interesting? You got to create the narrative. So I think kind of that subtext of that part of it, I'm like really digging that part where I'm like, cool, we're going to get like Age of Apocalypse level power level mutants kind of things. Like, awesome.
Yeah. And I think that they're going to really go for it and tell some bigger stories. I have a pretty okay knowledge in X-Men. I wouldn't say I have like the deepest knowledge or whatever, but I'm having a lot of fun digging into all these Easter eggs and learning about these new characters that I've like. Did I know about Bastion? Nope. I was just like, who the heck is this character?
I feel like I have a card.
Figure this.
There's like a card in the 1994 Fleer set of a Bastion.
Probably.
Have I looked at those cards in 20 years?
I was getting to the point where I was like debating, just like, because I couldn't find this anywhere. And I was like, somebody tell me the answer on this. And then I was on Wikipedia, Forge's Wikipedia page for far too long, and then came across this. So,
sweet.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I think that they're telling interesting stories. I've never read the Life and Death one-shot comic.
Okay.
And I like that they're kind of mixing that with another one of Forge's stories that also involves Storm and Madeline Pryor.
Interesting.
So, who knows what happens?
Yeah, there might be some more twists and turns we're done. And then finally, a positive praise. We kind of looked at our criticisms, favorite parts. We'll end with a praise here before we kind of get to our next segment. I think just overall myself, the fact that they're playing with different genres, right? Well, we kind of saw a little bit more hard, fast, epicness maybe in the first couple episodes. They were bigger, grander stories. We broke things down. We got a fun, what if Jubilee had a side story, right? And fighting through the old X-Men arcade game, great. Super Easter egg written. If you're an X-Men fan, it's one of those things. Maybe if that was accessible somehow, I don't know. Can you play that video game somewhere online? It's definitely going to see probably an increase in playtime, right? Like if it's available on like a Game Pass or a Nintendo Online or something like that, it's definitely going to be a more popular purchase, right? Coming up. So that was really neat. And then just the fact they're playing with different genres. And like I alluded to, if you watched Life and Death closely the first time through and you picked up on the subtle little like creepy horrors that were kind of coming through the screen, it's fun that they're playing with the genres. So I just really appreciate that. It threw it off a little bit. Again, it's a weaker episode, but that's just how it's going to work. First 3 good, last 3 good, everything in the middle. It'll be about this quality. So, do you have a final praise?
No, I think we kind of did it. I really dig this episode. Okay. I know it's not as strong as the other ones, but I still think that this is really batting it out of the park. If this is one of the weaker episodes that we're getting, sign me up. Keep signing me up. I'm going to keep showing up. So
cool. Sweet.
Yep.
Awesome. So with that, all we have to do is finally rank our top 5 mutants from this episode. So I say mutants. Could be good guys, could be bad guys. We're not really sure. And
if we're going to open that door, I'm going to swap out that number 5 spot.
Yeah, it's just any mutant. Doesn't have to be just a mutant. So we're ranking the top 5 mutants. Number 5 or the number 1 spot gets 5 points. Number 5 spot gets 1 point. So we're going to keep totals, averages, and kind of see how everybody does at the end of the show. So we did through all the X-Men movies. So if you go back and listen to Logan, I think that's the last one we did. That's where we run through all our averages at the end. So I'd recommend maybe that episode. And then for today, I guess just, follow along, keep listening, right? And we'll tell you how things go at the end. So today we're going to look at, our lists are different. So why don't we start with number, and how do we want to do this? We'll talk about when they come up on,
like when they get mentioned twice, or if they aren't on your list, because I just made a quick change and dropped somebody off of my list. So yes, whenever they get mentioned twice, or if they aren't on your list, we'll just talk about it.
Okay, cool, awesome. So at number 5, who do you have?
I have Sauron.
All right.
I mean, I consider him a mutant. Savage Land appearance. Mm-hmm. He's in a video game. He's a boss. Right. Cool guy.
Awesome. All right.
Happy to see him.
For myself, I put Forge at number 5, but he's higher up on your list, so I will hold off on discussing. Who do you have at number 4?
I got Spiral. Gotta give some props to my girl.
Yeah, multiple arms. She appeared in one of the other episodes as one of the people Morph turned into. So she came back. She didn't say anything, but she was there. She was there. At myself,
she said like one line, but
so
I think she was on screen for all of 2 seconds.
I went a little low, and I know I said mutant, and she's probably getting her powers back. So at number 4, I actually have Storm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. She's also on my list, but a little higher up.
Well,
so.
I mean, you could just get to it. So Tyson's number.
She's my number 3.
Perfect.
You're right. No powers, but a depowered Storm is still very fascinating. I love her I love Aurora. She's so like, I love when she was struggling with her powers after like Forge thought he might have helped her. And she starts calling to the winds and all those things, and it's like that voice actress still has it. Like, she is so sick, and she also, I guess, voices the owl, the adversary.
Okay.
So double roll. Love me some Storm. Why is she so low on yours? Just because she just depowered?
I just thought that overall, their narrative, because it's not a complete narrative, I can't give full props and full credit because I'm not sure where they're going with it, and I would hate to. So basically that. So it's an incomplete grade, right? So she's 4th on my list. Same with Forge. I moved them down because I was like, I'm not sure where they're going. They didn't really do too much. They had kind of a cute story, but it was definitely rushed, right? If you want to talk in terms of like Forge on his 3rd scene's like, I love you, Aurora. And you're like, that seems like could have had a bit more time with it, right? So just incomplete, and I thought there was 3 stronger mutants, so that's why she was so low. At number 3, I have Beast. And you're like, did he do anything? Jubilee's 18th birthday. Kind of a big deal. She's an orphan. She lives with a bunch of weird people in a house that play basketball in the gayest outfits imaginable. That's her life. Turning 18 is a really big deal in someone's life, and Beast's like, maybe Jubilee could have the day off from training because she would like to do something fun. We should join her at the arcade because that's what she wants to do. And I'm like, yeah, Beast, that's the most normal thing anyone's ever said. Everyone's like, no, she should train. And like being all brooding. And I'm like, well, just let the girl have an 18th birthday party. What's one day? Like, what are we doing?
That's fair. I thought it was more than just.
No,
everybody was
Gene and
pretty
Scott
much
are
like,
off in like Washington doing politics. Like, they're not going to come home. You have a jet that flies. Like, you're telling me they can't come home for her party tonight, and you're just like all abandoning this person. It's her 18th birthday. It's a big deal. It's a milestone. She's becoming an adult. You're her family.
Yeah.
No.
But to be fair, I thought everybody else was on board, but Magneto was like, "F that, we're training."
Yeah, but the only person that stands up and says it first is actually the hero in this case. So Beast, that's why you get 3 points from this one. How about who do you have at number 2?
I have Forge.
Okay. Yeah.
The fact that you got Beast so high is crazy. Because honestly, I think this Forge and Storm story is good. It's short. Yeah. It's sweet. Yes, their romance is a little rushed, but you can't have long, drawn-out emotions. And that's the same thing with last week or whatever, 2 weeks ago, where people were like, Scott just like essentially abandoned his kid. And you're like, yeah, because you can't have him debate this for fucking an hour and a half. You can't do this for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, but guess what? In my rankings, that costs you. If you don't give it to me, I can't. Give me a complete story. Give me a full thought. Give me a standout moment. Because you know the real heroes are? They're not the people that fly around and fight Sentinels. They're the people that stand up in a family setting and say, hey, I think this important milestone in our family member's life should actually be recognized, and we shouldn't just go to the gym. And big beefy daddy Magneto's like, no, we're going to get swole. Right? So Beast, you're a real hero because you stood up to your family.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough. I just feel like that line could have been picked up by anybody else.
And guess what?
It was just like,
he did it, so that's why he gets my points. And number 2, I have Magneto. Why? Because he's a big, beefy, buff gym daddy, and he's going to turn my beautiful mutants from the soft, pathetic Professor X, oh, maybe we should help people, to the badass Age of Apocalypse. We're the defenders of the planet heroes. So I'm excited to see all these upgrades with because they're doing so much train, and they're definitely racking up that XP. They got experience shares, so the whole party's growing at the same time.
I'm so excited for them to just fall on their face because they have no coordination.
All right.
Next, I'm like, what was all this training for? Because Magneto's kind of a shitty boss.
Oh, also
kind of a shitty boss.
His flex on Gambit with the 3 sugars and the spoons. That's a cool use of your powers. So
it's true, but it's weird. Rogue is smiling when she's talking to Remy, and then as soon as Magneto speaks up, she just is like frowny and depressed. You feeling guilty there, Rogie? Or or is Magneto doing what Magneto does? And he's kind of a dick. He seems nice, but he's kind of a dick.
I wonder if it'll come to the next episode with Rogue and her. What's the guy that she likes? The Cajun guy?
Carlos.
Carlos, that was it. Oh no, his name's Gambit. Remember it. Wonder what the next episode's called. Interesting. Cool. And then finally at number 1, I have, obviously she was the best. We saw a future version.
Absolutely.
We see the kind of the extent of her powers, how much training can actually help refine kind of these childlike fireworks that she can shoot. We've got the main girl of Motendo, Jubilee.
Yeah. She got a star in this episode. She got to take down Magneto. She got to take down Sauron. She got to take down a bunch of Sentinels. She was essentially one. You ever play a video game with like a co-op with like a younger sibling or
Tails?
Someone who's not very good at a video game and you just have to carry them? Jubilee was doing double duty.
Yeah.
Not only was she just like,
It's true.
she was carrying that video game and she was also carrying the episode.
Yeah, I beat Shredder's Revenge with a 6-year-old, so I know the pain.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's sometimes you just like. Anyways,
awesome.
But it's funny. Great. Loved it. Good to see Jubilee absolutely kill it. Who would have figured? But there was predictions at the start of this.
Yeah.
Before I watched any of these episodes, like who's gonna never be number one? And my number one, probably like the Vegas bets odds would have been Jubilee.
With a draft, yeah, definitely. She's definitely the lowest. I would have said Jubilee episode. Yeah, I'll probably skip that one and just like maybe we do a double show next week or something. But I'm impressed. It was good. Loving it so far. It's still good. We're back. Not this week. I think we had our South Park show last week. I think we're doing Wind Waker next week, so you'll probably hear us talk about X-Men before you get to that point. But yeah, we're gonna get out of here because our quick show turned into a longer show.
Yeah, as it does. Oops. But you guys have a good one and see you next week.
All right, bye guys.